Yo, what's good, fam? Welcome back to the channel. Today is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026, and let me tell you something. Bro, if you're a Commanders fan, this is one of those days where the news just hits you from every angle. We've got free agency decisions that could shape our offense, defensive moves that might completely change the team's identity, and a draft coming up with possibilities that'll blow your mind. Listen, this ain't clickbait, this is real talk. Fan to fan. Today, we're diving into three key topics for the future of this squad. First, the situation with Deebo Samuel and whether Washington should bring him back or let him walk. Second, the elephant in the room, Daron Payne and why a trade is starting to feel more and more inevitable. And third, something that's got me hyped like crazy. David Bailey, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech, who might be exactly what this defense needs in the draft. Bro, buckle up, this one's gonna be wild. All right, fam, let's get straight to it. Deebo Samuel is a free agent this offseason, and the Commanders have a tough decision to make. Do we bring him back? Give him another shot? Or do we just cut ties and use that cap space elsewhere? Bro, this situation is complicated, and let me break down why. When Washington signed Deebo last year, the expectations were clear. We wanted the San Francisco version of Deebo, the guy who could do it all. The Swiss Army knife who could win games with his legs, his hands, and his versatility. We wanted that explosive playmaker who could bail you out on third and longs. But listen, things didn't go down like that. And it wasn't all on Deebo. Fam, let's be fair about the context. ESPN contributor Bill Barnwell dropped an analysis on Deebo's situation, and some of the numbers he pulled up are, well, concerning. Turns out Deebo spent most of the season playing with backup quarterbacks instead of Jaden Daniels. That obviously impacted his numbers, but even when you project his stats from the 6 games he played with Jaden under center, the numbers still don't pop. We're talking about 99 projected receptions for just 850 yards. Bro, that tells you something. Most of Deebo's production came on screens and short passes near the line of scrimmage. His average target depth with Jaden on the field was just 4.5 air yards. 4.5, fam? That would rank him 65th out of 67 receivers in target depth over a full season. Man, that's basically a running back in a wide receiver's jersey. Now, I'm not saying Deebo's a bad player. There's definitely a useful player in there. But his injury history, the fumble issues this season, and the fact that he turned 30 in January, all that's going to limit his market in free agency. Barnwell says it'd be surprising if Deebo lands a multi-year deal with guarantees, and he'll probably have to take a pay cut from the $17.5 million he made this season. And bro, that's where things get interesting for the Commanders. Because look, Washington could give Deebo another shot. Maybe with a full offseason to build chemistry with Jaden, a more established system, better health. Things could go differently. But fam, here's the problem. It can't be at the same salary. The Commanders have too many needs. We need to beef up the offensive line. We need edge rushers. We'll get to that. We need help in the secondary. We need depth. Across the board. That cap space has to be used wisely, and dropping $17 million on a 30-year-old receiver coming off a down year. Bro, that's not smart business, so what do we do? I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. Deebo should test the market, see if any team throws him a bag. But Washington should make an offer to something reasonable, something that reflects his actual production and potential role in the offense. Maybe a 1-year incentive-heavy deal, something like $8 to $10 million with performance bonuses. That gives Deebo a chance to prove he's still got juice, and gives the Commanders financial flexibility to address other needs. Because listen, there's something we can't ignore. Jaden Daniels only played 6 full games this season. 6 games, bro. And in those 6 games, even though Deebo's numbers weren't eye-popping, there were flashes of what he could be. There were plays where Deebo used his physicality to rack up YAC, where his versatility created mismatches. The issue was inconsistency and injuries throwing him off rhythm. But what if we give him a full season with a healthy Jaden Daniels, with Terry McLaurin on the other side, with an improved O-line? Bro, I'm starting to convince myself here. Another thing to think about is the schematic fit. Cliff Kingsbury, our OC, loves versatile playmakers. Loves guys who can line up all over, run jet sweeps, be a threat out of the backfield. Deebo, when healthy, is exactly that kind of player. The problem is, we need to see him healthy, and we need to see consistent production. We can't pay for potential. Fam, we gotta pay for results. And here's the reality. If Deebo walks, who replaces him? We've got Terry. We've got Jahan Dotson, who had a solid season. We've got Dimey Brown for depth. But is that enough? Do we go into the draft for another receiver? Or use that money to sign someone else in free agency? These are the questions Adam Peters and Dan Quinn have to answer in the coming weeks. My personal take. Bro, is this? Bring him back, but do it smart. Offer him a 1-year prove-it deal. If it works, great, we've got another weapon for Jaden. If it doesn't, we're not locked into a long-term contract, and we can move on without financial pain. But don't let him walk without a fight, because if he goes to another team and suddenly turns back into the old Deebo, bro, we're going to regret it. And as Commanders fans, we've had enough regrets over the past few decades, right? All right. Fam, that's the situation with Deebo. Complicated, but manageable. Now, let's talk about something that's got me a little more worried, and that's the situation with one of our defensive tackles. Bro, I hate to even bring this up, but it's the reality. Daron Payne probably played his last down as a Washington Commander. And listen, this isn't just fan speculation on Twitter. This is coming from legit sources in the industry. Christopher Knox from Bleacher Report listed Payne as one of the top players likely to be traded this offseason. And when you look at the numbers, it makes sense. Payne was our first-round pick back in the 2018 draft. First round, fam. Since then, he's been a Commander his whole career. 7 seasons repping the burgundy and gold. And he's been a solid starter, a reliable dude anchoring the interior of the D-line. But now, with just 1 year left on his deal, Washington's in a tough spot. And the main reason is money. The final year of Payne's contract carries a cap hit of $28 million. $28 million, bro. That's a lot of money for a defensive tackle, especially when your defense finished dead last in total yards allowed and 27 in points allowed. Knox wrote that trading Payne would save Washington $16.8 million in cap space. And fam, when your defense needs a full-blown rebuild, that $16.8 million can go a long way. Now, let's be clear. Daron Payne is not a bad player. In the 2025 season, he had 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 46 combined tackles. Those are solid starter numbers. The issue isn't talent, it's value versus cost. Is Payne worth $28 million? In today's market, probably not. Is he a guy who can help a team? Absolutely. But for the Commanders, who need to rebuild this defense from the ground up, that cap space is more valuable than keeping Payne for 1 more year. And here's the thing, bro, Payne's name has been in trade rumors for years. Every offseason, it pops up. But this time feels different. This time feels inevitable. Man, I hate that word, but it fits. Let's talk defensive context. The Commanders are already paying Javon Kinlaw $30 million over the next 2 years. Kinlaw was a free agent pickup meant to solidify the interior, but he struggled with injuries and consistency. So we've already got 1 DT on a big contract. Then we've got Jerison Newton, our 2nd-round pick from the 2023 draft, heading into year 3. And bro, Newton flashed this year. Remember that Christmas Day game against Dallas? Newton had 3 sacks in that game. 3 sacks from an interior lineman in 1 game. Fam, that's rare. That tells you the kid's got potential, and he's probably pushing for more snaps in 2020-6. So if you look at the depth chart, You've got Kinlaw on a big deal, Newton with upside on a cheap rookie contract, and Payne with a massive cap hit. From a roster management standpoint, trading Payne makes sense. You free up cap space, give Newton more playing time to develop, and maybe get a draft pick in return. Even if it's a late rounder, it's better than letting Payne walk in free. Agency for nothing. But here's my concern, fam. We can't just trade Payne to trade him. We need to get the right value. We need to make sure we're doing the right deal. Because if we give him away for a 6th-round pick, and then Newton's not ready to be a full-time starter, or Kinlaw gets hurt again, suddenly our interior D-line is a disaster. And bro, we already had enough defensive disasters this season. Don't need more. Knox says Payne should draw plenty of interest and bring Washington a solid return in a trade. I hope that's true. I hope Adam Peters can pull at least a 3rd-round pick, or maybe a conditional 4th that becomes a 3rd based on performance. That would be fair value for a player like Payne with 1 year left on his deal. Another thing to consider is the fit in the new defensive scheme. Dan Quinn is trying to install his defensive philosophy, and not every player from the old roster fits that mold. Payne is a solid run stuffer, a guy who can eat up blockers and free up linebackers. But in Quinn's scheme, which emphasizes speed and versatility on the D-line, is Payne the ideal fit? That's a legit question. Bro. And listen, as a fan, this one stings. Payne's been a Commander since day one. He's been a pro, he's played hard, he's been part of this organization for years. But in the NFL, the business side always wins. And the business side says $28 million is too much for a DT when your defense needs help at multiple spots. So what do I hope happens? I hope the Commanders are proactive. I hope they start making calls to other teams now, not waiting until the draft. Teams that are one piece away from contending, teams that need help on the interior D-line, teams with cap space. There's a market for Payne. We just need to find the right partner. And once we make that trade, we need to use that cap space wisely. We need to hit free agency and get edge rushers. We're getting to that. We need help in the secondary. We need linebacker depth. That $16.8 million can reshape this defense if we spend it right. Bro, don't get me wrong. I'd love for Payne to stay and finish his career as a Commander. But in the NFL, sometimes you've got to make tough moves to get better. And this feels like one of those moves. All right, fam. We talked about a player who's probably leaving. Now let's talk about a player who could be coming in, bro. This one's got me hyped. Yo, fam, listen. If there's one thing that's got me fired up about this draft, it's the chance to land an elite edge rusher. And when I saw Nate Tice's latest mock draft on Yahoo Sports, where he has the Commanders taking David Bailey out of Texas Tech with the number 7 pick, bro, I almost jumped out of my chair. Because Bailey isn't just a good prospect, he's exactly what this defense needs. Let's start with the basics. David Bailey played his first 3 seasons at Stanford, where he was a solid contributor. Over those 3 years with the Cardinal, he racked up 14.5 sacks. That's decent, but nothing crazy. Then Bailey transferred to Texas Tech for the 2025 season. And bro, he went off. In just 1 season with the Red Raiders, Bailey had 14.5 sacks. The same total as his first 3 years combined. And that's not all. He also had 19.5 tackles for loss in 14 games while Texas Tech made a run to the college football playoff. Bro, that stat line is straight up freak status. Nate Tice broke down the fit between Bailey and the Commanders, and his analysis is spot on. He said it's a pretty easy pairing because Washington is starved for edge rushers, especially guys who can win one-on-one and get after the quarterback. And that's exactly what Bailey does. The kid is a straight-up dynamo off the edge. He brings the heat every single snap, and his motor never stops. Tice mentioned that Bailey's lack of size might cause some issues against the run, but he improved in that area during his year in Lubbock. And fam, if a guy can level up his run defense in 1 season while also exploding as a pass rusher, that tells me he's coachable. He's a grinder, and he's got serious upside. Now let's talk about why the Commanders need someone like Bailey. This past season, our edge situation was, man, it was rough. Von Miller, who he signed in free. Agency is hitting the market again. And while Miller still has some juice, he's 37 years old. We can't rely on him as our main pass rusher. We need youth. We need explosion. We need a guy that offensive tackles have the game plan around. Bailey could be that dude. And listen, when you watch Bailey's tape from Texas Tech, you see a player with all the tools. He's got an explosive get-off, he can bend around the edge, he's got refined hand usage, and he's got a full pass. Rush arsenal, speed to power, rip moves, spin moves. He's not a one-trick pony, fam. He can win in multiple ways. And his motor? Relentless. There are plays where he's chasing down quarterbacks from behind, running down ball carriers 20 yards downfield. That kind of effort is contagious on a defense. Tice said Bailey would immediately inject some juice into a front that needs it. And bro, that's an understatement. Our front seven doesn't just need juice, it needs a full-on transfusion. We finished the season with one of the worst pass rushes in the league. We couldn't generate pressure consistently, which left our secondary hanging out to dry. Quarterbacks had all day to throw, and when that happens, even average receivers get open. Bailey changes that dynamic instantly. Now, let's be real about the concerns. Tice brought up Bailey's size, and yeah, it's a legit issue. He's not a 270-pound edge who's going to set the edge like a traditional defensive end. But bro, in today's NFL, pass rush matters more than run defense. Teams are throwing the ball 60% of the time. If you've got a guy who can get to the quarterback, you can scheme around his run defense weaknesses. You can run stunts. Have a linebacker scrape over the top. Make adjustments. What you can't scheme is elite pass rush talent. You either have it or you don't. And here's the exciting part. Fam, Bailey will be stepping into a defensive scheme under Dan Quinn. That's all about speed and aggression. Quinn loves edge rushers who can win with quickness, who can bend, who can convert speed to power. Bailey is a perfect fit for that scheme. And if you pair him with other pass rushers, assuming we have more help in free agency or later in the draft, suddenly you've got a rotation that can keep fresh legs on the field and attack offenses in waves. Picture this. Bro, it's 3rd and 7. Offense is in a clear passing situation. Bailey comes screaming off the edge with that explosive first step. The offensive tackle is backpedaling. Bailey hits him with a rip move, bends the corner, and boom sack. Jaden Daniels and the offense come back on the field with great field position. And now we're in scoring range. That's how a dominant edge rusher changes games, fam. It's not just about sacks. It's about pressures, hurries, forced throws, failed third down conversions because the QB didn't have time. Bailey can do all that. And listen, the timing is perfect. We've got the number 7 pick, which is that sweet spot where top defensive prospects are still on the board. If Bailey's there when it's our turn, I'm not even hesitating. You draft him, sign him, put him on the field, and let him see okay. Because, bro, this kid has Pro Bowl potential. He's got the tools to be the kind of edge rusher who defines a defense for the next decade. Tice ended his analysis saying Bailey would immediately inject some juice into a front that needs it. And I'd add this, not just juice, fam. Bailey could be the cornerstone of this defense. He could be the guy we look back on in 5 years and say that draft pick changed everything. Because when you've got an elite pass rusher, everything else on defense gets easier. The secondary doesn't have to cover as long. The linebackers can be more aggressive in run fits because they know pressure's coming. The entire defensive identity shifts. And bro, after the season we just had on defense, we need that kind of transformational player. We need someone who brings hope, brings excitement, makes us believe this defense can be elite again. David Bailey could be that guy. And if he's there at pick number 7, Adam Peters better be sprinting to the podium with that card. All right, fam, Those are the three big stories for today. Deebo Samuel in a tough free agency decision that could go either way. Daron Payne in a trade that's starting to feel more and more inevitable, even if it hurts as a fan. And David Bailey, the edge rusher from Texas Tech, who might be exactly what we need to transform this defense. Bro, this offseason is going to be crucial for the future of the Commanders. We've got tough choices to make. We've got cap space that needs to be used wisely. And we've got a draft where we can land playmakers who change the roster. And as fans, all we can do is trust that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are gonna make the right moves. Because listen, we've got Jaden Daniels. We've got a solid offensive core. We've got pieces on defense. Now we just need to fill the gaps and become contenders. So fam, I want to hear from y'all. Would you bring Deebo back on a cheaper deal? Or let him walk and spend that money elsewhere? Are you down to trade Daron Payne? Or do you think we should keep him one more year? And most importantly, are you as hyped as I am about the possibility of drafting David Bailey? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, bro. And if you made it this far, you already know what to do. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications because we're back tomorrow with more Commanders content. The fam, see y'all in the next video. Peace.